The Honourable Member Charlottetown Parkdale and the Third Party House Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. For the past few years, Innovation PEI has invested $250,000 through the Ignition Fund in seed capital spread across up to 10 island startup businesses. I've previously raised concerns about how government measures the outcomes of the programme, but today I want to focus on the lack of diversity within the programme. About 70% of grants in recent years have been awarded to businesses owned by men only. To add insult to injury, this year's recipients, only 3 of which had women co-owners, were announced during the first National Gender Equality Week, and the news release only mentioned the male owners. A question to the Minister of Economic Development and Tourism: why does the Ignition programme so heavily favour men over women, and what is the Minister doing to correct this problem?
The Honourable Minister of Economic Development and Tourism.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I was at the event, and I know there were a number of women that were co-owners of a number of those businesses, Mr. Speaker. I don't have the exact details here with me, but I can get those and bring them back, Mr. Speaker, and I can also get the numbers on the applications as well. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Minister. The Honourable Member Charlottetown Parkdale, your first supplementary.
To clarify, Mr. Speaker, as I just mentioned, 3 of the companies had women co-owners who were not mentioned in the press releases. The underrepresentation of women in business is not a new problem, but the Minister seems at a loss of what to do about it. Luckily for him, the Minister responsible for the status of women has a specific mandate to advance equality and opportunity for women in all government policies, programmes and services. Question to the Minister of Economic Development and Tourism: can you tell me how many times you've met with the Minister for the Status of Women to discuss improving the outcomes of this programme?
The Honourable Minister, Economic Development and Tourism.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I meet with the Minister quite often. We talk about a wide range of things, and that's one of the things that's important to this government and to this Minister in particular, Mr. Speaker. So we continue to make those improvements and recommendations, and we try to move that as far ahead as we can, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. And the Honourable Member Charlottetown Parkdale, your second supplementary.
This year's Equality Report Card from the Advisory Council on the Status of Women noted that there has been great progress within government in expanding the use of gender and diversity analysis. Could the Minister share with the House what changes he intends to introduce to this programme as a result of performing a gender and diversity analysis?
The Honourable Minister, Economic Development and Tourism.
Mr. Speaker, we're making changes to our programs right across government, and we're doing that all the time. We're continuing to evolve them, Mr. Speaker, with new information that's available to us, with studies that we do internally, Mr. Speaker. We continue to make improvements because that's what we do in government, Mr. Speaker. We don't stand around and complain about things all day, Mr. Speaker. We actually get some things done. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Okay. Next question will also be from the Honourable Member, Charlottetown Parkdale.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. During estimates in the spring session earlier this year, we heard for the first time about an exciting new programme for islanders with disabilities to provide a secure income and recognise their need for financial security. The new accessibility supports launched in July of this year and included the Assured Income programme. The programme does not appear anywhere online except in one government brochure. We have been advised by staff in the department that the programme policies are still in draft and they are considering our request for copies currently. Meanwhile, there are no public guidelines on how much it provides or for whom or eligibility for the same. Question for the Minister of Family and Human Services: does the Assured Income programme actually exist currently?
The Honourable Minister of Family and Human Services.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And actually, yes, it does. And it was well received by many of our clients who were formerly with the Disability Support Program, Mr. Speaker. It's been operational since July. And the vision of the accessibility support is more around social inclusion and economic participation for islanders, Mr. Speaker, and giving those islanders who do have disabilities, Mr. Speaker, back their dignity. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. And the Honourable Member, Charlottetown Parkdale, your first supplementary on this question.
We look forward to receiving information about this programme so we can also provide that information to constituents as they contact us. In the meantime, we heard about a key recommendation in the Poverty Reduction Action Plan launched this fall about the Secure Income Programme, also for people with disabilities. Question for the Minister. Are the Assured Income Programme and the Secure Income Programme the same thing?
The Honourable Minister of Family and Human Services.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And at the risk of sounding crass, I would prefer if the honourable member just called my office directly if a client of hers has an issue or they have a question, Mr. Speaker, because as the honourable member indicated when she was interviewed by CBC, her office is being flooded with phone calls about people with housing issues, but we've yet, like I said, to receive one telephone call, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
The Honourable Member Charlottetown Parkdale, your second supplementary.
So unfortunately, we didn't get an answer to the question, but we are hearing that the calls that we get are the ones when the clients have been refused. In the meantime, speaking about the Secure Income Programme, it is one of the key recommendations in the Poverty Action Plan, yet at the press conference for the launch of that plan, we heard that the programme would not come into effect until fall 2019. Question for the Minister. Why are islanders with disabilities having to wait another year for dedicated financial help from this government?
The Honourable Minister of Family and Human Services.
Mr. Speaker, I can assure you that islanders with disabilities are receiving support, Mr. Speaker. With the new accessibility support program, they are now receiving single point of entry, Mr. Speaker. They do not now have to find themselves going from worker to worker searching for information. It is a single point of entry, Mr. Speaker, and it is a client-centered program, Mr. Speaker. So we include the individual's community, as well as the individual's family, to create a case plan to support that individual. Mr. Speaker, to the honourable member's other question, the Secure Income and the Assured Income are two different programs, Mr. Speaker, and we will continue to roll out the accessibility program, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.